It's always said that things are more complicated. But I like to introduce the next session. Can we switch? Yeah, we could. The next session to talk a little bit more about network APIs and whether they're part of CPaaS or a new category. Nicolai, can I ask you to get on stage? You're looking at that photo.
I'm not sure who that is, not me.
Oh, well, it's your brother. So
my AI generated.
It's your
picture.
AI generated. and the other panelists. Can I ask the panelists Joakim, Asa, and Satish to also join us here on stage? Do you want to sit or do you want to stand?
I'll do it hybrid, probably.
Okay, then you keep the chair.
Yes.
So I met Nicolai at the
DTW,
the TM Forum event this year, and we got to talking about the work that they do, that he does with his company, which is matchmaking and connecting scale-ups with telcos. So it's an interesting view of the telco market. So I thought you would be a very interesting moderator for this particular session. And of course we have Joakim. Finally we have the man that we can ask all the questions about, about the press release from last week. That's what Guillaume said last night. He said, every time we ask a difficult question, I'll ask Joakim tomorrow. Also, welcome back. Infobip, of course, and Satish from Comviva, who have a very distinct play also where CPaaS and network APIs come together. So I look forward to your discussion here.
Super, fantastic, welcome. Strong day, fantastic location, so what could be better? I'm happy to have you all here on stage. A brief introduction was already made, but we'll delve a little bit more deeper into what you all are doing. We'll talk about network APIs, a little bit of what they are, why they're different, and then we had a prep meeting which was before the PR news that you shared, Joakim, so thank you for that one, for disrupting a little bit the flow, because I guess we have to delve a little bit into the topic. But maybe we start from script, so from the beginning. Maybe let's get the clarity on network APIs. And then on your LinkedIn, it reads driving 5G network technology monetization. Nice title. Network APIs, why are they so important for it? How do they help the industry? And what are they? We heard a few. How do you classify them for yourself?
Right, so great to be here. Maybe first, why did I put that on LinkedIn? Well, obviously, we know that our dear Ericsson customers, the CSPs, the operators, have invested hugely into their 5G networks. And many are disappointed about the monetization that they have made. So clearly, it's our duty as a telecom provider, telecom vendor, to help find ways to actually do that. And it turns out that network APIs is probably one of the more exciting ways to do that. Now, we've seen here all the challenges. Raoul presented it very well. But we have done our own analysis similar to the one Raoul did. And actually, we come to the same conclusion. The addressable market is huge. It's just that it's very, very difficult to get to it. So he talked about the different categories of network APIs, and sometimes I get asked, what is my favorite API? Which one is the killer application that's really going to make or break?
Tell us.
Yeah, I'm coming to it. But in our analysis, we clearly saw that there were 3 or 4 big categories of APIs that are really interested. Because what we did was that we interviewed developers to figure out what is it that they're really interested in. What would they use if they had access to it, and how much money would they be prepared to pay for it? And it came back actually that not only is 40% of the total addressable market in the US, but 40% of the total addressable market is also related to the quality on demand API, which is the far biggest and has the most interesting use cases of all of them. Now, that also turns out to be the most difficult one to actually get in place, because it has deep ramifications into the mobile networks. And beyond all the different, how would you monetize them, what kind of business model would you use? Luckily, authentication and fraud prevention comes in as the second one, to around 30% of the total addressable market. And that is something that you can actually address already today with the functionalities that many operators have already implemented, many of them also supporting the CAMARA standard. Follow that was location verification, like Raoul mentioned, and also device information, such as is the device on, is it roaming, and so on and so forth. So by developing kind of quite a few, very few, I mean, not many, network APIs who can actually address, say, 80% of the market with far less than the 10 APIs that he mentioned, maybe 5 or 6. So I think that possibility that there are near-term APIs like authentication that you can use, and more long-term ones that are really, really interesting for the developer community, that brings at least me a lot of confidence that there is a real opportunity here in network APIs.
Okay, thank you. We'll come back to, don't worry, we'll come back to the JV questions, so we'll deviate from the plan. But also, on your part, Infobip, we heard in the morning was, I think, horizon number 3 was the topic of network APIs. Infobip obviously coming more from the omni-channel classical CPaaS. Is that really that close? Is just really a natural evolution? So what do you see? Why is that close to your business today? Where do you see the commonalities?
Well, I'm starting to lose my voice, so we'll see how this goes. Well, I mean, it's a natural interface when we're used to working with telcos, for example, and with the products that we can develop together with them. It becomes really natural in the development phase for us. So I think from that perspective, we're used to working with them, and we're also used to supporting them with productifying, the end goal, so to speak.
If I can interrupt, so you're saying it's more driven out of the telco needs, or because obviously you have also the developer side or the developer need? Also, kind of, is it a push or a pull that you're going into that market?
I would say both, I guess. Of course, we're heavy on our development side as well. So, but we also have our collaboration with Nokia, for example, where providing their network and stuff also helps us, so that we can. Again, I mentioned partnerships this morning. Again, this is really, really driving what we're doing in the market.
Yeah.
We can't do it alone. We have to do it together to really provide the products that the market is asking for.
Okay. Satish, from Comviva perspective, Comviva is broad, right? So you do a lot of things, and Joakim mentioned already there's a big promise, but it's not easy to realize. There's a lot of partnerships. Why did you choose that market, and wasn't there easier fruits to pick?
Firstly, I'm not sure how many of you know Comviva. In case if Comviva is more than 2 decades old in providing the telcos as a technology player, where we've been powering all the telecom providers globally in all the markets, where we have a different product lines in Comviva. We have a MarTech, FinTech, Digitech, and Revenue Tech, which is telco monetization, where I am responsible for. So if you look from a Comviva perspective, we've been in the space, and we were evolving with the market demands as well as our customer demands. If you look from, we are powering the telcos, what they are facing the challenges, what they want to build, and how we want to help them to evolve from a perspective from the 2G to the LTE to 5G space, that where we have enabled from a messaging domain, and then the network solutions in certain areas and the protection. So the 5G network APIs is a very natural evaluation to what we have been doing as a CPaaS platform, which is a white label platform that we offer to all our telco customers, which will be branded on their own. And along with our CPaaS platform, this is an extension where we call that as today, which is CNPaaS, Communication and Network Stack. So where they can enable these use cases, because that's where we are already in the telco ecosystem. We just connect to their network exposure component, which will enable them to enable these API use cases. So, and on top of it, our platform basically enables them not just the API part. We give the use cases like low-code applications that they can build and enable those directly and give a value to their enterprises. So it is part of the core ecosystem. This is the evolution of what we are looking at. Yeah.
If I summarize, listen, right? So everybody says it's more like an evolution of CPaaS. Yes.
It's a compliment. I can elaborate a little bit on that if you want.
Let's maybe a quick show of hands. Who feels CPaaS is or network API is a natural evolution of CPaaS, or who believes it's really a different category? Who believes it's a natural evolution? Okay, good. Who believes it's a different category? Okay, significantly less show of hands. Okay, so tell us, why are you supporting the majority?
Yeah, no, but here's why. So obviously, Ericsson has invested a lot of money on that bet that there is a natural evolution, right?
It would be awkward if you had said, no, it's very
exactly.
different.
And let me explain why we did that. So we, as the telco vendors and the telcos themselves, of course, are extremely good at building mobile networks with great capabilities, sometimes very, very complex solutions, to put together to actually deliver the services that we use every day that are quite simple to us as end users, but underneath, they're super complex. I mean, what we are not so good at is to actually abstract that complexity and making it available in an easy, intuitive way for others. We've seen that other types of companies like Vonage, like other developer platforms, have been much better at doing that. So while Ericsson and the telcos together, we could figure out what kind of network capabilities there are that would be interesting for developers and make them available sort of on a technical level. We did not know how to bring them to the developers really, to create all the assets that the developer needs to actually use them, and even to tell the developers what they are. Because something that surprised me when I started working with this 2 years ago is that how little developers actually know about mobile network and what mobile networks really can do. But of course, what encouraged me as well was that once you start explaining it to them, like the report that I mentioned briefly, when you start explaining to developers what could be available and what it could be used for, there's a lot of interest and a lot of, I feel, if I only had that, I could do, to start to innovate and start to. So definitely, I think we need that, say, developer intimacy that the CPaaS players provides to actually get this going.
If I can ask the two of you, and please feel free, either of you, to answer either both or the order. Now you come to really some hardcore network topics is something which you have a different level and expertise in. How challenging is it for you to really go into and help telcos to discover, to abstract, harmonize APIs? Is it something you see, hey, this is a big challenge as such in each operator, or is it rather the partnership topic, getting them together, which is the bigger challenge?
I'll take it. Yeah. So if you look from the ecosystem perspective, of course, the biggest challenge is every network that is on the telco side, they would be working with different network providers and the enablement of their exposure of a network. So firstly, there are very few players or the growing telcos that has a 5G. They still have to really get to there at the 100% of the percentage that we're going to talk. But whereas the second thing is about having a common component that really enables and exposes everyone to access. That's where Camara is really driving and enabling the entire ecosystem. So that is the very hard truth. Like all of us think that, okay, it is easy that we can connect to network. But when we go and when we work very closely, getting there and driving those, enabling those into the real use cases that are all talking about, how do we enable them? From the southbound to northbound, that whatever we call, there are up to 5 to 6 layers that you have to work from a application layer to the solutions and the API layer, then into the network layer, right? So enabling these is very hardest part. So I think this being with Camara, and I think everyone is trying to normalize on the interoperability of what we can all use that.
Joakim, if I can ask you one more question now, let's deviate. Let's talk 2-3 minutes on maybe a few more on the JV itself. Maybe first question, if you can share, how long did it take to get those 12 together to set up a JV? So when did you start that thinking process and then the real action? Can you give us something about that? Because it doesn't seem easy, right? Everybody who is in the industry, that doesn't sound very easy. How long did it take?
So to be quite frank, I haven't been part of the full negotiation process. I'm just put here to actually execute on the company
You reap the benefit.
that we should do. But I think I can't give you an exact number, obviously. But one thing that's clear to me, at least now, is that yes, we need the developers. We need a developers platform that has the access, but we also need the CSP. No CSP can do this alone.
Yes.
And the CSPs need to collaborate to get network APIs to the market. Take just simple things like terms and conditions. I mean, there are almost 100 operators in the Europe alone.
Yeah.
And if we should negotiate with each one of them separately around each terms and conditions and what commercial model to use, et cetera, then it will take a tremendously long time. And I'm sure that this JV could have come about much quicker if it wasn't for this fact, actually.
Yeah.
So it's not easy. It takes a long time because of the, I call it the non-harmonization, or let's call it lack of maturity of this business, this ecosystem.
Again, I'll ask as the two of you, sorry for that one, but again, feel free to answer. We talk about collaboration, and yes, collaboration is great, and we have an alliance, and we need to collaborate. But at the end of the day, if everybody collaborates, we just stack up. Everybody needs a piece of the pie, right? At some point, collaboration is we over-collaborating. So, what's your view, your first take on the JV? How do you guys look at it? Something, this is fantastic. This is exactly what the industry needed, or saying, it's going to be challenging for us. Is there any reaction from you already? Because I'm sure that you discussed it quite a bit last week already when it came up. Are there any views, impressions of this already?
Yeah, sure. No, from our perspective, I think it's a good push in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And competition is healthy. It means that we need to, do our part as well. So, I mean, we definitely welcome it. It's a huge market out there. There's enough for the players that are out there to take their piece of the pie. But obviously, it's a head start, of course. But for us, we welcome it because we don't want it to be one of these things that it takes too long to actually hit the market. We're talking about it for a long time, and I think we're going to touch on that later on with RCS, for example. It's been out there discussing for years and years.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a way to really push it out in the market and pushing the adding more use cases, adding more APIs to the standards that is being built. So I think that's, from an Infobip perspective, we think it's a good progression.
Okay. Any views from you?
Yeah, just to add, this is very, in a way, very healthy in terms of if you look from the knowledge perspective to educate telcos about showing the bigger value. Now JV is coming in, everyone will aware like, okay, there's something big is coming, and definitely everyone first want to be part of it or try to work with their core partners. It could be from a JV or from Nokia's Infobip or Comviva that we can work with. We are neutral in terms of working with the any sort of tech providers because we are a technology company. So there is always an opportunity. The awareness is enabled and the opportunities are numerous now. So I think this is a very positive momentum in the ecosystem like we all been seeing with RCS or WhatsApp evolution. I think this is something a big, maybe the community drive in a way that everyone would be awareing, and it will also give a lot of drive from a direct or indirect perspective to the direct telcos or to the technology partners. There will be certain other elements and opportunities that gets created to everyone.
Yeah. If we talk a little bit about the roles, right, and I'm a very simplistic guy, I'm probably maybe too simplistic, but anyway. So with one part, you need to somehow discover and abstract, normalize the APIs, right, and then make them available. And I see there's two ways. The one, you go to an aggregator, and there's a marketplace, and there's a few. You can also go probably private directly to enterprise as an operator, and you have a mobile private network, and you go directly to the enterprise. And then, of course, you need the management of that part, kind of the billing, the metering part of all those APIs. And there's a lot of parts, of course, where you need to agree on what kind of APIs, the standards. Where do you see the remaining biggest inhibitors for the market? Or is it the education of the developer ecosystem? Is it the abstraction part, actually making sure that they're available, making sure that they're aggregated? Or, hey, as the operator, I go directly to enterprises, something I think we haven't spoken too much about. Or educating the end markets of the developer. Where do you see the biggest remaining challenges of this?
If I start, excuse me, I think, I mean, it's hopefully I get to say a few words about what this JV is, because
yes.
It will probably clarify some of the comments here, but thank you for your endorsement. But but what we're doing now is sort of together here also, all of us is trying to figure out the supply part, how to get these APIs available for the developers and enterprises. What we have not talked so much about today is how do we get the developers and enterprises on board. So for me, it's really the demand side that is the critical factor, because you can't create supply without demand. On the other hand, you can't create demand without supply. So I'm really glad that a number of CSPs have thrown their hat into the ring and said, okay, we're going to do this no matter what, and we're going to invest in it. We're going to put the supply there, and then we can start working on the demand.
We'll come to the developer position right after. Let's answer this question. I want to clarify the roles, and then we'll understand the role of the JV. How do you see it? Same, different?
I mean, I agree with Joakim on that. But the second part, if you look from there is one more point I just want to add to that. One is developer part, and if you look from the enterprise ecosystem part, right? So developers would be accessing APIs and everything, but there is a enterprise part. If you look from a use case perspective, that it needs to be ready on top of APIs, which the platform players would be providing some of the ready solutions where these can be even more easily accessible. So which is something on the players who would also participate in the ecosystem. So.
And removing of complexity.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking about standardizing all of the ins and outs of what it means to provide those APIs. So I think complexity is one of them that really will be important.
Okay. Getting towards the JV itself, what's the value proposition and then the status, maybe a little bit from you?
Maybe I'll start by saying 3 words about what it is to demystify this a little bit. So everybody talks about the JV and the press release. So this is, for those of you who have not read the 15 quotes and the very long press release, it is 12 global CSPs, 4 in the Americas, North America, South America, 4 in Europe, and 4 in Asia, coming together with Ericsson to announce that they will create a joint platform that will actually aggregate and normalize network APIs and provide those network APIs to developer platforms. So this will be based on the Ericsson platform that we had that was previous to this announcement exclusive for Vonage to use. And now we're saying that together with the CSPs, we're going to make it available for any developer platform, be it a CPaaS player like Infobip, we will be very happy to have you as customers, or be it maybe a large SI or an ISV like SAP, for example, in the future, but or hyperscalers for that matter as well. So basically making it agnostic to who is the customer, treating all customers the same. So that's really the value proposition, that not each and every company, enterprise, developer platform needs to sign up the CSPs themselves and do that multiple times across the industry, because it is a cumbersome process.
Yeah.
So now you can rely on this platform, which is, I wouldn't call it a non-profit, but it's supposed to have a very, very slim margin just to scrape by, and the value is supposed to be created in the CSPs and in the developer platforms, not in this intermediate level. So it should be an independent and preferred and a very cost-efficient way to get access to these network APIs in raw format, so that you as a developer platform later can add all the developer assets that you need in order for this to become something for developers to use easily.
I have 2 follow-up questions, because you said aggregate and normalize the abstract itself, so making the APIs available from the operators towards the aggregation layer. That's part of the JV or not part of it, or that's the operator's or CSP's responsibility?
No, so the platform will connect to hundreds of CSPs globally, ingest their APIs, and in the sense that, yes, they will be Camara, most likely,
yes,
but there might be some version differences and so on, and those version differences have to be normalized towards the developer platform, so it becomes easy for them to use them.
Okay. And then you said a very slim margin in order for the value creation of the CSPs. Now I could obviously ask, what's the value then for the Vonage? Or because there's a very small margin to operate, you said, essentially there's no profit, if I understand it correctly?
So this platform is fully independent of Vonage. That's why we're breaking it out as a separate company, co-owned by the equity partners and Ericsson. and Vonage will be one of several customers to it. So there's the only value for Vonage in it is that it gets global access to network APIs in a very simple way. They don't have to negotiate with all 100 CSPs themselves.
Okay, interesting. Going also to you, kind of in terms of now, let's talk a little bit about the developer community on that part, because okay, let's assume we're getting that part, we're getting some of the complexity hopefully out with that one, got a good drive and the momentum. What do you do in your end customers? How do you bring them? How do you help them to make use of the APIs? What's the strategy? What's the plan on that front?
Well, I think from on a contrary to previous comments from another panel, is that we really believe that we need to activate the MNOs and the CSPs to really push this out to the market. They are sitting on a large customer base. Yeah, we would really need to get their help on that as well. But of course, we also sit on a customer base, but it needs to, both from their customer base, but from a network perspective, we would really see that they would, be one of the drivers from our perspective.
If I may, sorry,
Yeah.
just to follow up on that one. So they're available, but how do you get the developers to think out of the box? Is it they are already actively thinking, and hey, because yes, we hear all the banking, financial services, obvious. I haven't heard too much about manufacturing probably use cases, even end consumer use cases. Kind of, how do we activate that part? Is there a process? How do you get the demand side really up and running? Do you do something on that front?
Well, I mean, it's again, from us being really, really close to the market, understanding what the needs are, what are the actually hurdles that the market is running into in terms of questions around APIs that needs to be, secured or whatever it might be. It's the market will set the tone a little bit, and of course, for example, with our collaboration that we have with Nokia and their network as a code platform, just facilitating and enabling the development to become easier and also like quicker out to the market, go to market, faster time to revenue and all of that. So it's really depends on a lot of collaboration. But the key here is to make it as simple as possible for the developers to actually develop and deploy the use cases that the market is demanding.
You do a lot, so then you next, sorry, Satish first.
I just want to add one of the point from our experience perspective. We working with telcos in the space, and they partner with different technology players, or they will have a certain in-house products that they were building and they want to expose. So if you look from our the offering point of like how do telcos know, how do developers knows what telcos can offer. So from the API offering point, so we call something called API marketplace, which will sit on top of the entire stack of telcos. So where they will have categorized these APIs into your communication APIs or your network APIs or your payment gateway APIs. So since telcos are already partnering or working with a different offerings with the different players, so this is where the entry point for entire telcos network from a developer. So it is in a single API key and a single endpoint, which will be a proxy, works internally into different solutions that are offered by the telcos, so that they come there and they will enable that, and they know this is where you go when they are onboarded as an enterprise. You can get everything here and your developer documentation. So for a developers, it is not just developer API and API key. It is how easy that make it, because me being a developer, we all say developer that, APIs are available, you code it, right? Most of developers, your development cycle, we all know, everything goes more than 4 weeks to go live. The best that you can offer from these kind of solutions where, from a platform perspective, they get an SDK or a code libraries that are readily available from here, and that's where they get to know. If you go here, you get everything that includes a running model that and that you can test and start using that.
Okay, Joakim, yet before we then open up also for the audience for some questions, please.
Yeah, I totally agree that you have to make it available, you have to make it easy to use, all those things that developer platforms do very well. On top of that, I believe that there is a lot of explanation and outreach and going to developer conferences and actually educating developer community around what can networks do, because they are not very familiar. There are no network developers really, they're just developers, right? So they're not really familiar with that. And that's why it becomes important to make sure that these APIs will be available on big developer platforms like Vonage is one, but also all the hyperscalers and all the CPaaS players, that they have these network APIs available in a similar way, and similar types of APIs, so that developers actually get access to them as well.
Yeah.
Super important.
Looking already in the audience, if there's any immediate questions, I have a lot more, but I already also want to include you guys. Please. I think you need to speak very loud, or do I need to throw this thing all the way back there? Wow. Two.
Sorry, I can't hear you at this.
I'll try to. Maybe I come. All right, let's do this. All right. Hey. Very good. I think you speak into that one.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Two questions on the JV. First is, you mentioned that all the CSPs will have to bring their own Kamara APIs, right? So it's more of an aggregation and they have to do abstraction, etc. themselves, correct?
No.
But you mentioned that they'll bring mostly the Kamara APIs, right?
Yeah.
Today they will have only 3GPP APIs, the network that will provide.
So CSPs will expose Kamara APIs to the platform, and the platform will aggregate hundreds of CSPs and make them available to developer platforms.
So that abstraction is with them, okay.
Yeah.
And the another question that I had was, everybody is talking mostly on the developer part of it, bringing the demand side of it, right? What about the supply? See, you have hundreds of CSPs coming into this platform and all. What's the plan to make it consumable for the enterprises?
So this is the chicken and egg problem that we're trying to solve, right? And we know that the supply side has also been fairly slow in this part of the industry. But this JV, we believe, will accelerate at least the supply of network APIs, at least across these 12, which is already 5-6 countries more or less covered. And then with the help of the rest of the operator community and GSMA and Kamara and all that open gateway, hopefully this will inspire more to supply the APIs in a similar fashion.
I have one question that we got. So, not that I speak double. The one, of course, is the aggregation for an operator. It's an aggregate marketplace, and I aggregate them once and then I count the money. The other part I said is when they go direct with a mobile private network and multiple locations offered. How important do you see from an operator perspective are those two parts, monetizing by myself versus monetizing to aggregators? Is it equal, or you see actually the direct one is a small minor part? Do you see the order of importance?
I think that CSPs have tried to monetize by themselves for many years already, with varying success. Some have been maybe successful, but in general, for a developer to build an application on top of a mobile network, he or she needs to make sure that that application can reach all the subscribers in a country, in a region, even globally if you're a Meta or an Uber or something. So it's not enough that just one CSP in one country provides a network API. You really need all of them to do that. So collaboration, I think, is key.
But if you think about it, the mobile the MPN promise, which is a little bit of in most markets, a bit of a dissatisfaction kind of thing. We said before, we were sad. I think it's also overall, we didn't hit any of the forecasts, I guess. In that regard, it would be a single operator if I operate a port, for example, right? A large logistical hub or multiple manufacturing facilities, maybe even cross-country, right? And then I could abstract the other capabilities. That would be a single operator case. So you see there's a demand for this, or you see that it's a subsegment of a subsegment?
No, absolutely. I mean, now I get your question. So that's sort of a B2B use case rather than a B2B2C use case, right? Right. So when you look at this valuation that we saw today, which we agree with more or less, even though we believe it will not happen in 24, but maybe later, around 30-40% of that total addressable market could be addressed by a single operator use case, because it is actually B2B. Yeah. So it's a big and important one. But then the question is, That doesn't mean that every operator should do it that way. They can still access that market through an aggregator if they think that that's an easier way to market.
Yeah.
It's one way to drive it and get the other ones to get on that train, of course. But from the bigger perspective, I think that it becomes really, really fragmented if that's like a strategy.
Okay.
If you look from the single operator point of view, it's again if they are a technology driven and are they the first one to drive the innovation, definitely on a standalone, what is the agility that they can go and enable? Certain operators are already doing, or where we are closely working. It is again the agility that they get through their code partners, which they're going to work, so that they will be having a very immediate offering into their customers, and they can try everything from the innovation perspective. So that could give little more leverage.
Yeah.
But whereas always being in ecosystem will give a different view to them. Yeah.
More yes. Oi, phew. Luckily up there. Yeah.
There you go. Thanks for a great session. Just wondered how you think the impact of AI will affect both this new joint venture. Just saying that because I think the world of a developer in 2008 or even 2018 is very different to the world of a developer in 2024. Has any of that been taken into consideration?
I would like to leave the AI question to my developer platform colleagues, because I think, this joint venture will, like I said, provide raw, if you would like, wholesale Camara APIs to developer platforms. And I bet there will be a lot of AI used in those platforms going forward.
Yeah, obviously AI is driving the way that we both develop our products, but also how we address the market. So obviously it will be a big part of it. How big, of course, we don't know that yet, but it will definitely be a help in terms of how to understand what the actual market is demanding. So I think it will be a huge part of it.
I mean, of course, all of us know AI is a very big topic in order to get into. But if you look from this CPaaS network and the overall what's happening around with the Gen AI, it is always an integrated story for all of us in terms of enabling the use cases. If you look from a one end, network enabling the quality of demand, whereas AI is really enabling the content generation. Look at this, where there are certain use cases that enterprise really want to use the quality on demand API behind the scenes to enable the rich content through generative AI. It's a very integrated use cases that we are into, and definitely these network APIs, security, and the AI are going to play together a combination role as a community. I think in the morning panels that we had from a digital transformation perspective and different views. So I think that is where it is in a single ecosystem that enables enterprises and users in overall. Yeah, that's my take on that.
I think a lot of excitement going forward. I see a negative line that me as a good German, I feel decently uncomfortable with being over time. Thank you so much. We didn't cover everything, but I think we did cover quite a lot. Joakim, Satish, Asa, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nicolai.